I'm Hillary Strube.
I'm Wayne Strube.
And I'm Keith Jones.
All right. Well, let's tell them a little bit about Keith here. So we got your bio, right? He sent us his bio. Let's see what he said. See if he lied. Graduated from Texas State in his undergraduate, and he got a BS in exercise sports science or medicine, right?
Right.
And then he was cum laude with that. And he was also one of the very first DPTs. He went to graduate school there with me.
We were.
DPT is Doctor in Physical Therapy.
Yeah, doctorate. And so we got that. We graduated in 2011. We started in 2008.
Right.
Right. Yep. And let's see. Of course, he's worked for a large corporation.
Yeah, we'll keep the names out.
Yeah, we'll keep the names. That's fine. Everything's out of it. Yeah. So for the last 10.5 years, almost 11, man. It's a long time.
Doing the same thing.
Yep. And he takes care of outpatient and a lot of work comp stuff, ortho stuff. It's kind of great how they do with
about 98%.
They do a lot of stuff with urgent care stuff, right? You got
Right.
urgent care brings them to you, and you can fix them faster, which is great having that access. And then he has extensive experience in manual therapy, therapeutic exercise, and returning to work training, pre and post-op rehab, as well as wrong thing. Experience with on-site ergonomic assessments and human performance evaluation creation. What does that even mean?
That is the fun part of my job.
You make stuff up?
I get to go to where people work and watch them work and analyze their mechanics, and then design a test to recreate that in the clinic.
Oh, that's cool.
For pre-employment physical.
Oh, very cool. I like that. Awesome,
Yeah.
man. For pre-employment physicals.
Right.
Oh, very cool. Awesome.
Which is great. That's the preventative care. Right
That's what
there.
we're all
That's
about.
what
That's the part of
your goal is.
Okay.
what does. Oh, I shouldn't have said that.
Well, I can cut it out. That's part of
we
what.
do,
Yeah.
We do prevention as well. That's a
Okay.
huge part of it. That
Okay.
is, what probably we're going to get to a little bit later.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of why we're here. We had a buddy call in about stuff, and so that's why we brought you on. We wanted to ask you some questions, but so let's go with a little bit first. So our buddy called or sent a text, and he said, "Hey, man, since we're super famous, they wanted to know what we could do, what he could look forward to with his labral tear in his shoulder, and then also biceps." And of course, I'll bring up the slide later, but we don't even have it in front of us now. I can pull it up on my phone if we needed to, but what his MRI said. You read a lot of it.
It was pretty massive.
It was terrible, right?
Yeah.
You're like, what are they going to connect it to? What are they going to fix? So, what can he expect just from beginning and then to end? You can just kind of you can piecemeal it together as you want, or.
And he's already had surgery.
He just had surgery last Thursday.
Oh, he did have surgery?
Last Thursday. Yeah.
Well, I would be very curious to see the op report, see the before and the after, right? The
Sure,
MRI,
you
and
see
then
it,
because once you get in there, it's going to look a lot different.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people need to realize before surgery is the MRI is just a picture of what it might look like in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's very accurate. MRIs are great. And so the doctor kind of knows ahead of time what they're getting into so they can be prepared. But usually when they get in there, it never goes the way it's going to, they say it's going to go. They usually can do less or they can do more. And in his case, I was surprised that they weren't even considering doing a total shoulder.
Yeah, you said he's not getting a replacement.
Right.
I'm like, no, not that I know.
They base that a lot off of age, activity level.
Yeah, he's about our age, maybe just
pretty
a little bit
active.
over.
And getting a total shoulder, I mean, that puts you like you're not weightlifting again. I mean, you still can, but
that's his life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it's better to repair what you've got and fix what you have than start replacing parts. Because our natural bodies tend to work better than the ones that we create unnaturally.
All right. So, he pulled that bicep off of there, and he pulled his bicep off of that area there.
Right.
And then he also tore that labrum up. And so how long did so he waited, finally had surgery. How long did surgery last?
Well, it depends, of course. Once they get in there, then they start repairing stuff, cleaning things up. Surgery can be 2 or 3 hours, or it can be 10 hours. It just depends. I mean, probably
that's
probably
the call
not
you don't
that.
want. You're like, oh, it's 10 hours.
And then, of course, what about after he gets out? Of course, he's going to have probably an overnight stay or something like that in the hospital. Maybe not. It may be outpatient.
Yeah, is it an outpatient procedure now?
Usually they'll keep you overnight for those. Sometimes they don't.
Do they put a nerve block in?
Yeah, they'll put in a nerve block.
Okay.
Not all of them, but
What's a nerve block?
So they actually go in and they cut the signal, the pain receptor,
With
at the nerve
with drugs?
Yeah, with drugs, with chemicals. They don't actually cut the nerve or like block the nerve, but they just chemically kind of numb it for a while.
Okay.
Just it's kind of the same way that like lidocaine works. It goes in there and it just slows down the transmission of it. So.
Okay, and so that's one thing. What can you expect when that wears off?
Pain. It's
I know,
coming, baby.
it's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's not comfortable. I think that was one of the questions I get the most. Is it gonna hurt a lot? Like, how bad is it gonna hurt? I mean,
You only sleep in a recliner. You can't
Right.
fart. You can't pee anything without it hurting.
Sneezing is the worst.
Yeah.
The first, I don't know how his is or how specifically his surgeon wants it, but usually the surgeons I work with, they all want people in a sling, an immobilizer sling for about 6 weeks.
Okay.
And so you would wear
Squeezing
that.
the ball.
Yeah, and you know why you squeeze the ball?
Blood, I guess. Right?
Yeah, blood flow.
Blood flow,
Because you
from
can't-
all the edema.
You can't move your arm because you've had surgery on it,
Yeah.
so you're not getting blood flow this direction, so you pump, and that works just like the calf muscle pump.
I remember all that.
Yeah.
I used to make shit up as I went. But
Yeah, the doctors sometimes don't explain that to patients. I'd say at least half of my patients have no idea why.
Or they tell them when they're drunk after surgery.
Oh yeah, they tell
which
them.
they don't
High as
even
a kite,
remember.
like what? Yeah.
Well, a lot of times too, they'll get the sling in the mail a couple days before the surgery,
right.
and then they'll put them in like a temporary sling to go home with.
Just like one of those like
Yeah.
lanky slings that doesn't really do much.
And then
usually
they got
they're
this pillow when they come
Okay,
walking
yeah.
in with. Yeah, they got their big old thing.
Yeah, you got to wear the pillow here.
Yeah, the
'cause
wedge,
You
yeah.
don't want it here. You want it
To a
kind of
certain
up
degree,
here.
it needs to be
And
okay.
why do you want it in that degree?
It's more of an open position. It's
Oh.
open packed.
Open
I mean,
back.
The more you move out of this position with the shoulder after surgery, the worse it's going to hurt. And you would think that, you know, whenever I'm doing passive on people to get their shoulders moving after surgery, the motion that hurts them the most is putting them into this position, into this slinged up position like this. I don't know why, but that position is always the one that
It just
hurts
closes
the
it up,
most.
man.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. So how do they know they can trust the surgeon? What are some things they can do to find out if the surgeon's worth a darn? Right?
Yeah, so I mean now with modern technology, you can go start Googling your surgeon. You can look at it, but a lot of times it's not accurate. People that leave reviews either leave reviews for extremely out of the ordinary good service or bad service.
That's it. Huh?
The middle ground, which is where you want a surgeon to be, you don't want a surgeon that's doing high end, only works on football players, because he's going to probably be expensive, or you know.
And now you wait months to see him.
And you wait forever,
Yeah.
and they do a great job, of course, but you also, on the other end of the spectrum, you don't want a doctor that's got a bad reputation.
Yeah.
And you can find.
I think you hit mute earlier.
I did it a couple times.
That's all right. No, they're good. Go
So
we had the other ones on. No, that if it's on like that, you're good. If it's flashing, it's off. So you're good. Don't worry about it. Keep going. We got the other ones rolling.
she distracted me. I'm like a squirrel.
Sorry, man.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, there's a red dot.
So how do we trust that surgeon? You're saying.
So the best way that you can do that, and I've had patients do this before, is they find other people that have seen that surgeon. They find other patients.
Yeah.
Like word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
That's what we're
Right.
trying to do now with physical therapists, surgeons, occupational therapists, anybody.
Right.
We're trying to build a directory and find like almost like a Yelp review, even though Yelp sometimes is kind of garbage, so that people can leave a review. And we're going to work out a number system. So anything anybody can come up with that it'll help us rate someone on a
Right.
star system. Like this person should be pretty good because there's different things. You may be well educated and have a fellowship, but you may be so damn busy you can't take care of them, right?
Right, and that brings up a good point with PTs as well. As I found this just with all the different PTs I've worked with over the years, that I've worked with PTs that have every letter after their name.
Yep.
And it's, I mean, every letter you can imagine, and that doesn't mean that they're going to be a good therapist.
Alphabet soup.
Yeah, I've worked with some therapists that have been through all of it and they have all the letters, and I'm like, you're doing that?
Yeah.
Oh,
I've seen it too. I've seen it.
Yeah, so I mean, and then there's PTs that don't have all the letters after their name, and they're probably the best PT for you.
That's how a guy with the smartest guy I knew is the guy with the masters. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He runs his own business now, you know, but he just had a master's, but he could treat patients like a champ. He knew everything, in and out.
But a lot of times they push for those letters after the name because it's marketable.
Yeah.
And so,
Right.
like, if
For the company.
for the company and for the PT
Yeah.
too, because if I'm like my dad or somebody's in another city and they're asking me, hey, I need to go see a PT, I'm going to go on Google because I don't live there, I don't know
Yeah.
people, and I'm going to look and I'm going to filter it by people that have a lot of letters after their name.
The best way,
Well,
right?
means more
It
education.
means more education, more training.
Less time.
Yeah. And chances are, I mean, they are good. It doesn't guarantee.
So how do you know if they're competent? And how do I if you want that PT? How
So
do you know?
you'll know pretty quick with your PT. Usually in the first visit or
So
two.
how do you
How?
know?
You'll know.
Yeah.
It's how they build rapport.
Okay.
It's not always, especially after post-op rehab, because post-op rehab, you follow a protocol. It's fairly simple.
Yeah.
Right. It's not that complicated. You know what to do and what not to do. It's all right there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Any good PT worth of salt can do post-op rehab for them. right? But
Well,
what
you follow the directions, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
But what you got to find is the rapport that you build
Mm-hmm.
and the trust that you build, because that's the most important thing that we do as therapists is the initial trust.
Yeah.
Is building
Yeah.
trust. So that's why I was saying, like, the first couple of visits, you're going to know if this is a good therapist for you or not.
Okay.
Because you'll just know. You'll talk to them, and because you're going to want to spend. I mean, you're going to be spending. Well, the first 6 weeks, it's once a week usually for just passive. But after that, I mean, you're going to be going 2 to 3 times a week for months.
How
Because
long?
you're finally off the sling.
Yeah. How long do you think from beginning to end?
So,
It depends.
If your friend is in reasonably good shape, right?
Very, very strong.
Don't smoke.
Yeah.
No, you eat your fruits and vegetables and your meats and everything.
He's pretty
healthy.
He's crazy like us.
They're gonna heal pretty fast,
Okay.
right? But the problem is sometimes those people are the worst.
He's gonna
They
go
take
work
the
it out
longest.
too fast too.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've had in the last, I'd say 2 years, I think I've had 3 failed surgeries.
Okay.
So how can you avoid those fail surgeries?
Listen,
If you
listen,
can.
listen to the surgeon, the restrictions, and ask a lot of questions, and listen to what the PTs are telling you. Because I repeat stuff over and over and over again while I'm working with people. I'm like, make sure you wear your sling. Don't do this. You know, I'm just repeating this. They're like,
Right.
I got it. I'm like, no, but now you'll remember it. They're like, you've got to
Yeah.
do these things.
And what are the questions that patients should be asking their surgeon?
When and how do I wear the sling? How long am I going to be wearing the sling for? That's the number one thing. And also, after surgery, the surgeon needs to set up the expectations of when they're going to be coming back for the follow-up visits. Because a lot of patients, they get out of surgery and they just forget, or they don't know, or their wife or their husband is the one taking care of the technical aspect of the visits, and there's a miscommunication there. But knowing when the follow-up visit has to happen, what's going to happen at the follow-up visit, like what's the point of the visit, and when do I go to the doctor if I think there's something wrong? That's the biggest question that the patients will have for me is, how do I know to go? Like what? Because it just hurts. Everything hurts. Everything hurts. I'm like, if one of the ports is bleeding, there's pus coming out of it. If it just turns red, if it's starting to look angry, you got to go, because the wound care in the beginning is the most important.
Right.
Okay.
It's protection with the sling. Don't screw it up, and let the wounds heal. Once that happens, then you're kind of in the clear.
Yeah, in the clear, so that doesn't mean they can get back to doing what they're doing. You said 6 months they're out of the sling. Now, what are they supposed to expect?
6 weeks they're out of the
That's what I
sling.
meant. That's what I meant. 6 weeks.
So the first 6 weeks is, well, the first week, letting it heal, getting over the surgery. We don't do therapy usually the first week. Sometimes, if the surgeons are aggressive. The second week, we start passive, range of motion only modalities, hand exercises for pumping blood. And we do that for the 6 weeks that they're in the sling, because it needs to move, but they can't move it.
Actively.
Right. There's no active at all. So after the 6 weeks, once they come out of the sling, that's when it all starts to hit the fan. That's when it starts to get fun. Yeah.
For both the PT and the patient.
Yeah, that's when because the protocol is going to tell you basically your parameters, right? For the first 6 weeks, it's very basic. You only have 1 or 2 things you can do. After that what we call phase 2, it's you have to be creative. Like you have to be able to come up with the right exercises to do that stay within the protocol, and that's what makes PT kind of an art. It's like, yeah, there's some science here. We need to follow these guidelines and do this, do that, but being able to build rapport with somebody early on is why you'll know your therapist real quick, because then after the 6 weeks and it's time to start really hurting them, and they're gonna have to trust you, and you're gonna have to say, yes, you can do that, and they're like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, you're gonna do it.
And then that hurt you talk about, like, how do they know what's a good hurt pain and what's like, okay, yeah, that's not good?
Yeah, so what I tell people is you got to set a pain ceiling, like Willy Wonka. You get right up to it, you don't really touch it, and then you come down. If you get to that pain ceiling, you got to stop.
Okay.
We're done. And they sometimes don't know what that is, and we have to figure it out.
And that's a kind of just a process thing.
It's a process, right? And that's where the PT's judgment comes in. Like if I have a guy that's at week 7 and he's just out of the sling, and I have him doing like the pulleys, and he keeps doing this, right? I'm like, I'll put a 2 or 3 pound ankle weight on his shoulder and have him do it against the weight of the thing. And he's like, it just hurts too much. I'm like, okay, then we got to stop. You only do it to that point right there. And so it's a good way for them to see, like, okay, I know I can get to that point, and then I'm coming down. And they just go up to that point where it's like, okay, that's good. I can do this.
Yeah.
And then, nope. And then so you physically find that ceiling when it comes to the
That's hard education, because some people are like, they just go crazy with it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, and like I've seen some therapists that don't look at those compensations. Like, how do you know those compensations? Can you talk a little bit about what you should be looking at, whole body, not just movement?
So in that first 6 weeks when they're in the sling, one of the home exercises is pendulums, obviously, but the other one is
Pendulums. What is that?
Oh, so pendulums is where there's a right and a wrong way to do pendulums. It's you dangle your arm and you use your body weight and move your arm like it's got a weight on the end, like a pendulum. You don't lean over and stir the pot. It's not active.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, after this we'll take a video of how the right way and wrong way to do
I'll pop up a video
pendulums.
while he's saying it.
Okay.
So one of the other home exercises everybody gets is doing scat pinches, like against a corner of a wall or like a door jamb. Or sometimes I'll give them a foam roller, and they can lean up against a foam roller and do chin tucks and scat pinch, and they can do that in the sling, out of the sling. They can do that, and that's the main one, because that's your building blocks for whenever they get out of the sling and you start talking about compensations.
Right.
And being able to identify compensations in a patient is the number one thing that all therapists need to focus on.
I agree.
During post-op rehab, because you're preventing them from building bad habits.
Yeah.
I have a guy right now that had a labral tear, massive. It said the word massive in the MRI. It was a massive rotator cuff tear. He tore subscap, infraspinatus, and the supraspinatus. I mean, massive tear, biceps tendinosis, everything. Anyways, dude did not come to therapy for the first 6 weeks. He sat in his apartment and played NBA on the Xbox for 6 weeks because he didn't know he was supposed to come into therapy, and I can't get him out past this.
Yeah. So what
That's 6
happens
weeks.
during that time? Because PT is so important, it might be kind of boring the first 6 weeks, but why is it so important, and what are you trying to prevent?
So we're like what I was saying earlier with the scat pinches. You're preventing bad habits. So you're showing them how you're doing the passive right. You're showing them how the shoulder should be moving, and I see therapists do this sometimes where they just have the shoulder and they're just moving it, right? You have to block it and put it in the right position, and then do the passive.
Right.
Unless you're trying to get scapular mobility, and then you can do scapular mobility modes, and you can do that.
Trying to get that ball to do that in that joint, right?
Exactly, the roll and the glide. You've got to make sure that you have the roll and the glide. And you set that up during the passive range of motion, and so then with the scat pinches, you're already getting them used to that idea of pulling their shoulders just back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when they're doing the pulleys and they're doing active range of motion, you're watching for those compensations, and that's the most important thing in the very beginning, like weeks 7, 8, and 9, is not letting them build compensations, because that's going to mess everything up. So this guy I was just talking about, he's going to do this every single time
Because he doesn't have the motion to do it.
He doesn't have the motion to do it.
Yeah.
So to get his arm up, which he needs to do, he's going to compensate because there's no motion there. So he's going to rewire the brain to use the deltoid to fire first.
I can do this.
Because the supraspinatus has got to fire first. That's the whole point, is it does that, and then the deltoid can take over, because the deltoid, the line of pull is like this, so it wants to go straight up, right? And especially after rotator cuff surgery, the rotator cuff's not doing anything. So as soon as you start moving it, the rotator cuff is going to be completely shut down, and all your motion is going to be coming from the big dumb muscles. Right.
Well, maybe one of the things you can ask is like, what compensations should I be watching for?
Right.
That'd be a good way to find out if your therapist knows what they're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah, that's to your therapist.
Yeah, ask your therapist. And we've already told you one, right?
That's the big one.
Yeah, and then this kind of stuff.
Well, it's
forward,
the whole.
Yeah.
So what I tell people is, once we start actively moving it, I have them stand in front of the mirror, and I'll put a line down the mirror, like just with a piece of tape or something, and have them line their nose and their forehead and their chin and their sternum and everything up with that line, and have them just do active flexion, no weights, right?
Right.
And I'm like, keep everything lined up on that strip of tape, and you'll see people, their first compensation, it's not this, it's this. they'll tilt their head over to that side, and that's where it all begins. So it's all about head positioning. So that's why we start.
Well, and you're in a sling, and you tend to go forward and tight upper trap, everything, scalenes.
And that's why we get them out of the sling at least once a week, and
to really get that good motion,
right,
in a good position.
Right.
Well, how will they know that it's actually successful surgery?
That's hard to tell. Well,
when, how-ish, how long will it take to know?
And so if a therapist has done a lot of post-op rehab, you can kind of tell. Like I had a guy, 2020, the beginning of 2020, he tore his bicep, just completely tore it. But the labrum was fine, the rotator cuff was fine, everything was fine. But so because he tore the biceps tendon, they basically cut off the attachment where it attaches to the labrum, and they shorten it and they screw it in right there, right? They just lock it in. And so it still works. But the anchor point moves from here to here. Well, the surgeon, I guess, didn't anchor it in a good position. Like, we never really figured out what happened. But every time he would move his arm, it would pop and it would thunk thunk. It was like rolling.
Ooh.
It did not feel right. And from the very beginning, I was like, I don't want to say anything, but man, this doesn't feel right. And I ended up emailing the surgeon and I was like, hey, I don't know what's up with this guy's shoulder. Went back to the surgeon, did another MRI, and I never saw him again. So I don't know what happened with this case.
Surgeon got mad for you calling him out?
So I guess you would say it's more like an intuition, like there's a process and things should be going in that right way and everything should be healing properly. But if you see something kind of out of the ordinary where you're kind of like, ooh,
and that's where you gotta
I haven't seen this happen, or I haven't.
Right. That's the thing. I tell patients, like, look, I know how this should go. Like, I'm looking for certain things to be happening on a certain timeline.
Right.
And as long as those things are happening, we're good. The pain you're having, that's normal, right? There's certain things that to set the expectations about. But the PT is going to have to really know what they're talking about, know what they're looking at.
Yeah, because like for a patient, like, you know, they might feel like something is off and they know their body, but they don't know the process, but sometimes they might be right. Right.
No, and that's such a great point, because the patients know their body.
Right.
I had that guy that I told you about that sat in his apartment playing. He actually was a patient of mine before when he tore it. And I came in and I saw him the same day that he tore it. And I looked at his shoulder and he's like, man, we're not doing PT. I know I tore it. I know it's torn. I'm like, okay, well, we need to try a little bit. We need to see, because sometimes these do well. I believed him, but also I kind of needed to try some therapy with him to see how he does, because in workers' comp world, they don't usually send you for an MRI and an ortho unless it's like obvious. And his was pretty obvious. But they still wanted him to try a couple visits of PT just to see how it would react.
Yeah.
Because the dude's in his 60s. It's not healthy. But I believed him. But to talk about your point was that you got to trust the patients too, because they can tell. They might not be the sharpest crayon in the box, but sometimes,
and especially in that area, they don't know about what's going on.
Right, and that's where your education and your trust that you build with them has to come in, because I've had patients tell me things before. I'm like, this guy's, he don't know what he's talking about. Right, I know what I'm talking about. But they end up being right about a lot of stuff too.
Yeah.
So that's just a data point. Like what they're telling you and what the feedback they're giving you, that's a data point that you need to just stick it in there and wait for the data points to add up. And once the data points start adding up, that's when you're like, yeah, maybe there's an issue going on here.
How do you, will they ever get back to full strength?
Your guy in particular?
Well, everyone.
He's strong. I mean,
probably.
Yeah.
He probably will.
Yeah.
But they can.
Okay. I just wondered, will they be able to do what they did prior to? You know, some people I want to be doing a catch an overhead snatch or something like that. You know.
if you do rehab early on after surgery and you focus a lot on rotator cuff strength and scapular positioning, right, and getting rid of compensations. And if you have the expectation that you can get strong, but it's going to take a lot of time.
But you have to have the patience for it.
You got to be very patient. Yeah. I tell people, like in your guys' case, but all the other shoulder surgeries that I've seen, I tell people give it a year. I mean, the doctor will say, you're going to be back to normal duties. You can go back to work after, I don't know, 6 months or whatever.
But normal duties is different from each person.
Right, but I tell people give it a year from the time you had surgery to work on it. before you make any decisions about whether or not the surgery was worth it or not, or if it's successful, because you need that amount of time to build the strength and see how strong you can get. It takes a while, and it should take a while. It should take about a year, because I usually don't see people after, unless there's an issue like they need an MUA or something. I usually don't see people.
What's an MUA?
Manipulation under anesthesia.
Yeah.
Break.
So what? Yeah. What is that actually?
So, finish my point. I usually don't see people after, I don't know, 3 months, maybe 4. Usually by that point they're doing stuff on their own, and I give them my card. I'm like, email if you have a problem. Right? They can finish it on their own. They don't need PT past that. They can go see a personal trainer. Now, if they get stiff, like this guy I was telling you about, he's locked in. You get adhesive capsulitis, not frozen shoulder that people get randomly out of the blue and they did all the studies on. They have no idea why it happens. That's a whole other world.
And it supposedly goes away eventually.
And it goes away on its own. They don't know why. PT doesn't help. It's a whole other thing. People can get adhesive capsulitis, frozen shoulder, from disuse, right? They can also get it post-op, right? And that's why the passive range of motion beginning is vital, is because we don't want them to get stiff. We don't want the capsule to lock in place.
And so what do they have to do if they get that?
So if you get that, that's when you get the MUA.
MUA stands for?
Manipulation under anesthesia.
So that
basically they knock you out just like in surgery, and the surgeon grabs your arm and slowly, it's not a rip, it's not okay, we're done. No, it's very slow and very controlled.
Yeah.
And they stabilize the scapula, they have you lay it on your side, and they have you lay it on your back, they have you lay it on your stomach, and they force it through.
Yeah. Google it. It's pretty cool watching the video of it. You're like, ooh.
Yeah.
And then after that, you should expect what in therapy?
So then it's vital. It is absolutely vital. And you have to go to PT after an MUA. You can't just not do PT after an MUA.
And it's daily.
And we tried it. We usually don't have the authorization to do it daily, just workers' comp insurance, but it needs to be every day. You're doing something every day to move it. But no, I tell people you're going to come in the same day or the next day after it, and I'm going to move your shoulder like you've never felt before.
It's great if you can get them in that same day. I used to try to talk to the surgeon, when are we doing this? Let's get you out in here. I literally just have an opening in my schedule to get them in.
Usually when people are getting an MUA, I tell them beforehand, if this is what's happening, PT is going to get real aggressive. I'm going to be real aggressive with your passive after this, because basically, I tell people, this is the surgeon's handiwork right here. It's like your surgeon has built this thing inside of you, and it's up to me to make it work, right? So the surgeon and the PT, they have to work as a team, and they have to communicate with this. But man, I've had, I think, 3 or 4 MUA patients in the last couple years, and some of them do really great with it. Some of them, they stiffen right back up. I had a lady that had to have 2 MUAs. She was a police officer, and she was wrestling somebody and got on the ground, and she tore her labrum, she tore her biceps tendon. It was all messed up, and she had to have 2 MUAs. And the second one was brutal. She did not take well to it. She got sick after the anesthesia. She didn't come to therapy for a week after it, and
waste of time.
She got stiff, but luckily the second MUA worked pretty good, and I was able, and I told her, look, I am not going to be your friend anymore. I'm going to move your shoulder. It is going to move. And you're going to have to sit there and
when can that cop go back to work? She's going to obviously be on light duty.
She's already back. So.
But how long would they expect that? Is it, you said, they're not going to see me
so
after
her case,
4 months, but she's not going back to work?
Her case was 6 months, at least, because it takes time to get to that point where the doctor decides to do an MUA. He wants to see how aggressive is PT being with you, and what is your actual motion? Is it, and what's the infield like? What is it? Is it guarding infield? Is it muscular? Is it boom? Is it a block? Is it hard? Is it firm? Is it give a little bit whenever you do a fast, or does it give a little bit when you do it slow? There's so many different things that go into it. But once it gets to that point, and the surgeon's like, yeah, we're doing an MUA, it's go time. Now, the other option that I do with some patients that I can see that are getting stiff, and I'm probably going to do this for that guy that I was telling you about, is get a jazz machine or a stretcher. Basically, it's a contraption.
It's the one that they used to use for the knee replacements.
Yeah, they got 2 knobs. One knob does this, the other one does this.
I think
that's
I saw
pretty
that
neat.
before.
It locks onto the chair, right? And it's a contraption. You just set your arm in it. You just sit there and you crank the knobs, and you get it to go. You get it to that point, and then you just sit there for like 10 minutes.
And how would he like know about posture and like the scapular retraction and not allow that device to actually do this?
Right. The device is actually designed pretty well.
Okay.
It prevents that because it's got a strap.
Oh, okay.
It straps down.
So,
but the other side of that is us educating the patient to make sure they're paying attention to that, because they should be just as knowledgeable as you are about these compensation things.
Of course.
They should.
And they take that home with them. Take that home with them.
There's a rep that I call, and he'll show up to the house and he'll set it up. And that's another point is the rep.
You better have a good rep.
It should be pretty good, and I only use the good ones. And they'll set it up, they'll teach them how to use it, and they'll talk to them about that stuff. And they should. And usually after it gets set up, I'll ask them follow-up questions like, are you compensating? Are you doing it in front of the mirror? What are you doing while you do it? Like just to make sure they're doing it right. Because you're right. If they are compensating when they're doing it, you're just teaching bad habits.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Very important.
We should interview with a jazz person.
We don't use jazz machines anymore. JAZ.
Yeah, ZZ or something like that.
I can't remember. Yeah. We use another company called, I forgot the name of the company, but the machine is called the Flexinator.
Yeah, I remember extensionator and flexionator. Yeah. Cool. All right, let's see. Now, going back to the beginning of all this, these people who do all that stuff, do you care how bad they stink? Do they need to wear deodorant?
Yeah.
Or what do they do? They get somebody to do it, like throw it under there?
Self-care, man.
Throwing some powder in there.
That's the thing that people don't realize. Like, when you're locked like this, you can't put on deodorant.
You can't get on the other arm either.
And you see, I'm wearing a button shirt. Yeah. Most people will wear a button-down shirt like this because putting on a t-shirt is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, spray deodorant. Go get a can of spray deodorant and give you a couple squirts up there. And
at least it blocks the stench.
Yeah. But that's the thing that a lot of people don't think about. Like, I had a guy ask me, like, how am I supposed to put on deodorant? My wife keeps saying I stink. I'm like, get the spray stuff. He's like, oh.
Wow.
Oh, yes. Like, boom.
Mind blown.
Mind blown, yeah.
But it's something so simple.
Yeah.
And button-down shirts. Well, they'll learn that quick.
Pearl snap, baby. You ain't even got to work hard.
Pearl snap.
I have a guy right now that wears button-down shirts, and he don't button them up. He just comes in with an open.
Beautiful.
I'm like, dude, walking by the girls, like waving at everybody. I'm like, wearing his sliders. I'm like, good lord, man.
I'm here.
Button your shit. He's a dirty old man.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of those around. That's right. All right.
But yeah, if they do stink in PT, if it's a dude, I'll tell him. I'm like, hey man, are you bathing? Like, for real.
So
I've seen it, man.
So you said if it's a dude, but how do you approach it for female?
So if it's a female, then I have to approach it a little bit more delicately.
Yeah.
Right. I can't just.
You don't want to be
called
the HR.
You stink. Yeah. Right. Exactly. No HR for me. Not anymore.
Do you try to do y'all have texts or do y'all have like?
I don't have any texts. No, I'm pretty honest with people. I'll bring it up, but I'll bring it up a little bit nicer with them. The dudes, you build that rapport, the macho thing. You can kind of BS with them, right? But the females, I mean, I do too. But I do ask just about everybody about who's at home with them, who's helping them around, who's helping them get their food. Who's helping them bathe? Who's helping them do all this stuff?
So yeah, it's like I have to ask all these questions to everybody. So
I
it
lump
comes
it
up.
in there.
So
like if I'm noticing like this lady is not able to, she's not taking care of herself, I'll be like, hey, so who's at home helping you? Like, are you able to get in the bath? Do you take a shower by yourself?
Who helps you put on deodorant?
Yeah, and she's like, oh, I can't do it. And if they bring it up, like, oh, I can't put on deodorant. I'm like, oh, have you tried the spray? Or something. So I'll bring it up, but I won't just jump right into it.
You kind of go around.
Yeah. Just spray it in the air and run through it.
Yeah, and some people after surgery, they stop caring.
Oh, I saw a guy come in, like you said.
It takes
more
more
effort. The guy for
effort.
6 weeks of playing video games. I had a guy come in with a knee. I know we're talking about shoulder. He came in, nothing, for 6 weeks. And he came and saw me.
Total knee?
Yeah, and that was nasty. I mean, he didn't even take the bandage off. He didn't go see his doctor. It was just skin everywhere. Skin fluff.
So hygiene. Very important. Right. And then showers.
Yeah, I can't
What's the protocol on showers after post-op?
So you're probably going to still have the wounds and everything, right? The bandages that are on there and the steri strips and all that. And those, you have to just let them fall off. You don't take them off, right? Even if they're just dangling by a thread, you don't pull them off, right? So showering is tough. It's hard. You got to kind of do sponge baths because you can't get it wet. Yeah. Take a shower in the sink. But that's why having someone at home to help you do that stuff.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's so important.
Yeah.
The other big one a lot of people don't think about is the driving thing. Is people ask me all the time, when can I drive? Like, should I be driving right now? I'm like, no, you cannot be driving right now. This is not good.
For about how long? And
6
I know
weeks?
that's probably physician.
6 weeks is that because of
least.
medications they're on, or is that because they are not able to react appropriately in a
it's
vehicle?
because they're supposed to be in a sling,
Uh-huh.
and if they have to slam on the brakes, instinctively they'll reach for the steering wheel,
Of course.
and boom, it's not good. And yeah, it's not safe because you're not on your toes. You know, your mind is in the surgery mode, and it's just not good. Like I had another guy that
6 weeks.
he was driving, and he comes in the sling, and I'm like, "Did you drive here?" He's like, "Yeah, man, I got nobody else." And so, my company, we offer a lift service for people.
That's cool.
Okay. Yeah,
It's
that's
free.
my next question.
Like Uber, right?
Because not
Yeah.
everybody has someone there to help them out,
Right.
or everyone's working and it's hard to get off your schedule like for 6 weeks.
That's part of the reason we started doing the lift service like that was because we used to have vans that we'd go pick people up. So we'd have to use manpower to go do that. That takes
But
somebody out of
that
the
takes-
clinic.
So y'all use
Yeah.
Lyft, like Uber and Lyft? Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
So
we
it-
set it up there on the computer and we can see on the map when they're on their way.
You better be on time.
Oh yeah, we'll call them too. But like, hey, your Uber's gonna be there in like 5
That's
minutes.
awesome.
You better
And so
be
That's a
ready.
good way to get your patient to show up on
Yeah,
time.
so who pays
Yeah.
for the lift? The company?
We pay
Okay.
for it.
Well, I mean, it's
Or I
a
guess
write-off.
through-
It's a write-off, and if you're the company, write it off and then pay for it. I mean,
It's-
how does it work with insurance? Because, you can't pay people's deductible. and
Yeah, that's a
stuff
little
like that.
past my pay grade. I don't know
Yeah.
how far that goes,
Yeah.
but I know that we pay for it. It's just an expense.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
something-
you write it off. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
anything else. It's
Yeah,
cool.
that's getting
It's
into
a
tax
modality.
code. That's getting into corporate tax code.
Yeah,
I'm a
exactly.
PT.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, it's
So I had a lady, I just thought about this, that she was a flight attendant and she got bumped into the turbulence and she tore a rotator cuff. And she was driving and she retore it.
I was thinking you said turbine. She could die. Bumped into the turbine.
The turbulence.
Turbulence.
She was driving and she tore it while she was driving.
Yeah, that'll do it. All right. I never thought of that. Like, well, I guess you're off your drugs. Go right ahead.
Yeah, no, I know. After my
Unless you
surgery,
got
I
a
had
Tesla.
my surgery. After 3 weeks, I drove after 3 weeks, and I did not feel good. I didn't feel safe,
Oh yeah.
and I didn't have a musculoskeletal surgery, but I still felt like I didn't have the reaction,
The attention, yeah.
the attention. Yeah, it was not cool.
Okay. All right.
It's not worth it.
We've already gone through about everything. You already how many sessions of PT? Lots, right? And
Well, in the
how many
beginning,
kids?
it's like little, right?
Yeah.
Once
Yeah.
a week for 6 weeks, and
it's
then
2 to 3 times a
probably
week for more.
3 months
For 7, hold
or
on.
2.
I'll pull up the protocols.
All right.
So he's ready to go first.
And they don't drive, and they will be as strong as they were prior if they do their exercises right, unless they're maybe they're a strongman competition, right?
All right. So the internet will work. Here's a post-op, and I can send this to y'all, and y'all can post it up there.
For sure. We'll just erase everything off the top, right?
And this might be different per
Yes.
physician.
All surgeons have
Surgeon,
different ones.
yeah.
So this is the one from the Army.
Oh, okay. 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 I got you.
Yeah.
Everybody uses it. Everybody steals it. It's fine.
Yeah, everybody steals it. So there's the weeks, right?
Okay. 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah.
Right.
Continue swing 6 times. Ah,
6 weeks. There it is. 6 to
DC
9. DC the sling. So weeks, basically 6 through
12.
month 4
Yeah.
is progressively strengthening. I mean, it's kind of cool because, whenever I did a neuro rotation, the only neuro experience I ever had was this one clinic. And it was people that had spinal cord injuries and brain injuries. And one thing I learned there was that you take people down to the basics. Like they had to learn to roll before they could crawl. And then it's just like a baby, right?
Yeah,
How a child grows and goes through these certain phases.
Okay.
The shoulder rehab kind of works the same way. You got to start at the most fundamental level of what the shoulder's supposed to do. And, that starts with the passive. You teach it how to move, and then you got to build the rotator cuff strength, because the rotator cuff strength is where it all begins. If the rotator cuff isn't functioning correctly, nothing else is going to work. So it's kind of fun to take it from the beginning of, hey, this thing isn't working. You get to watch it kind of grow. It's like watching a child grow up, and you see different, reflexes integrate and everything. The shoulder, I'll have people come in and be like, look, I can do it. And it's amazing. They can stand there and everything's straight, and they can flex their arm to 90 degrees without compensating. And for them, you set that up, and to them it's just mind blowing, because they can see them doing it now. Like, oh my God, it's changing. It's getting better. It's it's growing.
And they're aware of each, like you said, compensation. So they're providing good feedback to the brain for the brain to give feedback to the muscle to do what it's supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah, that's a lot of reason why people become PTs, to see that kind of progression, right? That's your highs of
Yeah,
life,
that's
right?
the
that's your
high.
payback, right?
Right. That's what makes it fun for me is I get to see this thing happen, and it's really cool.
And when it happens, you kind of go.
Yeah, it is.
Besides, like getting but what? So if that's your high, what's your low?
Having to get up at 5:30 in the morning every day.
And I notes are my low.
Yeah.
So the notes, the program we use is not that great, but I mean it does what it does, and I'm pretty good at it.
You're so used to it now,
I work with the students that I get, PT students I get. I work with them to time them to speed up the notes so that you don't.
I hate when they did that, but boy, it taught you a lot.
And I'll set a timer. I'm like, I know this sounds bad, but we're gonna race. And we're going to see how fast I can do a note versus you. And then I'm going to show you tricks, how to get them done faster. My notes are done by 5 every day.
Well, and they should be, because if you spend the time that you're out of work, hour-wise, you're taken away from your family, you're taken away from your downtime.
Right.
And then who knows what you did with the first patient at 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
You've already seen 14 patients and you're like,
life.
So that's the one thing I tell every student I get when it comes to notes is like, look, we're going to have 14 patients today, and you got to think about it like a camera reel in your head. Like what happened in the beginning and the whole day happened, and you got to write it down in order. If you do your notes in the order that you saw them, and you write the exercises down in the order that you did them, you're just writing down what you already saw.
Yeah. Right.
You're just writing down your day. That's all you're doing, and it makes it go better. Because what takes so long with people doing notes is they'll skip around. Mm-hmm. They'll do a little bit on this one, then they'll go over there and they'll knock out the Z valve because they don't want to forget, range of motion and whatever. And they bounce around. They take forever to get their notes done. But no, the way I see it, I got a certain number of buttons I got to push in a day. And I just start busting out button pushes.
Think that's great.
Just boom, 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 boom. But I'm basically done by 5 every day.
That brought me to another question that you said. What did you say you told your student therapists that blew their mind? I forgot what you told me. It's something about one of your pet peeves in therapy.
Or therapists.
Therapists.
Like how to make sure you're doing a good job, or is that what you're...
Something like that.
I remember you telling you that, but I can't remember the specifics now, what it is.
I'm trying to remember what it is too, but we'll get back to it one day. This is the first of many interviews.
Yeah, you always said, how can patients know? Are they getting...
We fit everything. The only thing we're missing
Well, I have a question. Yeah. So, this guy that actually wanted us to do this video, so you said he's gonna be in therapy for 4 months, give or take. But then you said a year until he's getting back. Is there a point where he could come back for that next level training instead of maybe going back to maybe poor habits that he was doing with the training?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically once the post-op rehab is done, say 3 months or wherever, they should be on their own, right? They should be independent. They should be doing a home exercise program every day. They should be on their own, and as long as they do it exactly that in a perfect vacuum, right, you should never have to see them again, right? But if they start to develop compensations or they start to see like things aren't going right, and they want more PT, then in workers' comp is a little bit different. But in the regular world with insurance, they can go back to their doctor and they can either get another referral for PT, and I've had this happen multiple times, or sometimes the referral that's good for a year. Right, so depending on what their insurance will pay for it, sometimes they can just come right back on it. But the thing is if they are coming to you for post-op rehab and there's like a status change, like now it's not post-op rehab, it's I have shoulder pain, or the doctor writes the referral for shoulder dyskinesis or with pain or something like that. So it's not really it's a new thing. So then there would have to be a new referral.
Yeah, because my question was mainly for, if you had poor habits, which might have caused the injury in the beginning, how can you maybe prevent that injury from happening again with those exercises that you still want to continue doing?
So you're exactly right. So what we said earlier about what the other thing that I do for the company is going on site. I've actually done it before with someone that had major surgery like that, and I've gone to where they work and I watch them work after the surgery.
Yeah.
And I'll write up an ergonomic assessment, right, which is basically my assessment of their ergonomics and their positioning with the chair and the table or their workstation or whatever they do. And I'll be like, that's why you tore your rotator cuff. you got to stop doing that.
Right,
You
yeah,
have to change things.
because how do people know that, they have the surgery, they've had an injury, and then they're going through great rehab, and then they come back and they haven't changed
It's
anything.
It's good that you have that access to do
Right.
that.
And
That's
so
good.
I'll tell you a story about that. I had a little Hispanic woman, barely spoke English. I forgot her name. She was like this tall. She wasn't over 5 feet. She was like up to here to me. Anyways, she had a job where she worked in a manufacturing where she had to pick something off of a table and put it into a machine that was basically like my head level.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Jumping there.
And so she's like every time, all day. And that's how she tore a rotator cuff. And so I went out there and I saw it was at a very prominent big eyeglass company where they make eyeglasses. And she was taking the lenses and having to put them in a polisher machine to polish the lenses after they're cut, right? And I was watching her do this and I was like, and I went and got the manager and I was like, look, this is the problem. Give her a stool and this won't happen again. And they got her a stool.
Well, it was something so simple, right? But she wouldn't have known. Like, if she didn't have that option to have, like, the ergonomic evaluation, she would have retorn it, right?
That's one good thing.
Or
about comp,
over time.
Yeah. And that was actually, that incident sparked me going back to that factory and writing up a performance evaluation and an ergonomic assessment for every position they have there.
Oh man, that'd be cool to have
Yeah,
that kind
and
of
I
gig
think-
just to do that all over the
It
place.
took me 2 days.
I'm
Yeah.
just
I
saying,
was
any
there for
gig
2
like you
days.
call like Tesla, hey, I'm coming by, let me check your place.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
that'd be a good
I think that should
therapy
be
job.
like a really, like a new thing. Like, it should be
Well,
kind of
there's people that
a...
do that, aren't there?
Yeah. Well, usually, so I've thought about doing my own thing and doing those, but it's hard to market because there's not that big of a need for it because finding the people that do have that need
Yeah.
is kind of tough. Now, another thing that I do with the company is we do back school and train the trainer, which I've gone to a few companies and I'll train the employees on lifting mechanics and working mechanics adapted to what their environment is. And then we also do a train the trainer where I train the managers how to watch for ergonomic problems and how to nip them in the bud early.
Yeah.
That's cool. And that's one thing you could do as a marketing scheme is just thinking about it. Like you go to the insurance companies that have work comp. You say, hey, I'm here to do this and I can save y'all a lot of money, a lot of hassle in the long run. And your businesses, you can tell them to get a discount on their insurance if they let me go and do this.
Yeah.
And then you get paid for it too. So
Yeah, it's like a consulting job.
that's cool. Very cool.
No,
Yeah, and I
it's,
think a lot of places are lacking that.
Yeah, I think that would, because that's prevention. That's what we're all about.
Right,
Stop
and
this garbage before
and
it's-
that kind of where this conversation kind of began with and it's going to end with is this all the whole shoulder rotator cuff tear, labral tear, all this is all because something bad happened, and it was either because of a terrible accident, something bad happened, or it was preventable because of an ergonomic problem that they had at work or whatever. And so our job really is to put ourselves out of business because if we train people well enough and we go on site and we do all these consulting things, we should prevent at least 50% of the injuries that I see on a daily basis. I'd say 50% of them could be prevented. Like a big one that we did, we didn't go on site and do this, but we had to talk to their HR, was a very prominent grocery company in Texas that we all know and love. They started the curbside thing, remember? And well, now everybody knows what it is.
Everybody does curbside. Everybody does.
Yeah,
curbside.
everybody does curbside.
So when they started it, though, the racks that they were using, I was getting people after people after people that had injuries because of these racks. And so my boss and my boss's boss, the VP level, they went to their HR VP people and said, "Hey, we got a problem. Like, I mean, we love the business and everything, but you know, these people have got to stop getting hurt because this is not good."
Well, yeah, it takes them out of work, and then it takes
And so
it's money out of the company and everything.
So my company talked to their company, and they did a consultation thing like that, and we recommended ways to change, and that's what they have now is the improved, less injury prone version of that. So I had a lady that tore her Achilles because the thing rolled up on the back of her foot. Yeah.
Oh.
Like it sliced it. Yeah, oh my God. I had
Nightmare.
a couple rotator cuff tear surgeries because of those things. Oh yeah, it was like shooting fish in a
That's
barrel.
pretty tough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's. I think you probably got to get going soon. We've been at it for a while, for almost an hour.
So I just want, before we turn it off, so a big question that patients need to start asking themselves during this process is, what did I do to be in this position? and what are ways I can fix it. So that's kind of a good thing to know.
And the question your therapist, so everybody's looking at it. Get more eyes on it, right?
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and whenever a patient does get injured and you get in with a PT, you're going to be with that PT a lot. You're going to get to know each other really well, right? More so than with all my other patients. My surgery patients, especially the shoulder ones, I get to know these people. We become friends.
Yeah, it's going to be a while.
You smell their armpits.
Right, exactly. We get real close. So that for them is a great opportunity to do what you were just saying and ask questions about their work environment, about working out, about exercise, health, nutrition, all this stuff. You have access to this person that has all this great knowledge and information.
And if they don't have that knowledge, they're definitely going to find out for you.
Oh yeah, people ask me stuff all the time. I'm like, that's a good question.
Yeah, we like to
let me research that for a little bit and I'll get back to you.
Be a sleuth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All healthcare providers aren't made the same. We all know that. Everybody should pretty much know that. Unless you're like our parents' generation or my parents' generation, we're like, okay, I'll do what I'm told. You know what I mean?
All those people passive recipients of healthcare.
Yeah,
which a lot of them.
I mean, and people, doctors, even you hear them say, well, don't try to be Dr. Google. But you know what? You need to learn. You got to educate yourself. How can a patient know they're getting proper treatment, any healthcare?
Quality
What
care.
do you think we could ask? What question could we find out? How can they find this information?
Yeah, that's a tough one, man, because the best answer is the internet, is get on there and start researching, but it's a swimming pool full of information that you don't really know. It's the same problem with internet research. Is sometimes you're not getting the right information.
What do you think the most important question you would ask if you were trying to find, if you had to have shoulder surgery, what question would you ask to know you're going to get the best surgeon, best physical therapist, best what?
So the surgeon, I would research them.
What would you Google? Yeah,
I'd just research them, figure them out, look at their pages and everything, and see what I can find out about them. But looking for patient testimonials and like Amazon reviews, right? You look at what people write on there about these people.
See if it's garbage or if it's real.
And sometimes like those Amazon reviews, you can read like, this guy's an idiot.
Or they're different country right now.
Yeah, this guy doesn't. He messed that up.
Yeah.
Because sometimes surgeons get a bad rap, not because they're bad surgeons. It's because they don't have good bedside manners.
Yeah.
And so
which doesn't mean that's a bad surgeon, because surgeons are supposed to be behind the scenes.
My surgeon that I had, he was a good guy. He was a nice guy. I wouldn't want to have a beer with this guy or anything.
Yeah.
But he was an excellent surgeon. So you kind of have to trust your intuition, but you have to trust it only to a certain point, because your intuition is going to tell you this guy's bedside manners are terrible. Run away from this guy.
So patient reviews are good.
So it might be different from physician or surgeon to therapist.
Right.
Because surgeons they're not really spending so much time with the patient.
Right.
So maybe their bedside manner can be mediocre.
Yeah.
But they're damn good surgeon.
But it's different with PTs.
In PT it's the reverse, right? Because you want someone with great bedside manner that's going to ask the right questions to the patient, as well as provide them with the education that they need.
Exactly.
You said something about having to put hands on the patient, right? Your student physical therapist. You tell them if the patient they ain't putting hands on that patient, they're not doing it right.
Right. Well, that brings up a point with doing the passive. A lot of people will talk about passive, and I have all my students do passive on people that are fresh. If we have a fresh surgery that's pretty new, I have all my students do it, and I watch them like a hawk, and I'm like right there with them, mostly so the patient will trust us. But that's the one thing that like blows the minds of my students is like hug their arm, get it right up against you, and use your other hand to block their shoulder. And that's the position you do passive in. This whole thing where you grab up next to the glenohumeral joint and move it around, that's great and everything, but the most important thing with passive is they have to relax. So get it here, hug their arm, make their arm become a part of you, because you're moving their arm. That arm belongs to you while you have it. It doesn't belong to them anymore. It's kind of weird. And and I'll say that to people. I'm like, here, I'm giving you your arm back. And then I slowly, and they take it, and now it's their arm.
Yeah.
Should there ever be a time you go see a physical therapist where they like during your initial evaluation or something like that, or during that treatment, that they don't touch you? Your therapist should almost always have hands on you if you're doing an evaluation or something like that, right?
At post-op?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because there's a lot of times you go in and people they get a bike, they get a e-stim, they get ultrasound, they get laser, they get ice, and then they go home. You know
that's not PT.
Yeah, that's
That's a Hummer clinic.
See, like I
what's
feel
Hummer mean?
hot pack, ultrasound, massage, e-stim, repeat.
There you go. Until you run out of insurance.
Now I will use e-stim on post-op people.
It helps.
Yes,
for
it
pain,
helps.
for pain control, and I'll get them. I'll use it in the clinic one time, and if they like it, I'll get them one to use at home. And I got a good rep. She takes care of everything.
Cool.
They can use
That's
it.
good.
There's places for modalities. That's what
Right.
Ellie said. All the stuff you just said to Hummer, that's modalities.
Yeah,
There's a time and place for it.
it's the feel
That's
good
what
stuff.
it's there, but it's not
that's
the only
not the
thing that
treatment.
you need. Yeah.
Now, here's another big question that I just thought about that kind of goes along with this: is patients ask me all the time, "Do I take my pain meds before PT or after PT?"
yeah.
Ooh, that is a good
And I'm
one.
like, well, you can't do both, obviously.
During?
You can't double it up.
Yeah.
So let's do a couple sessions and let's figure it out. Because some people, and I it's the same thing like with the hot pack. Like I'll put the hot pack on people before or after because it helps them calm down. That he feels good.
Yeah.
They like it and they need to relax, right? So the thing about the pain meds is some people, they want to take it beforehand so they can get through the passive. And then they get home and they can chill out and then they can take the next one. It's like every 4 hours or whatever. Some people, they want to use the pain med as like the reward for making it through PT.
Oh, wow.
So as soon as they're done,
I shot a pill.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah.
so everybody's different. And
Yeah.
like this guy I have right now that's locked up, I told him like, look, you got to take your pain meds before.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
going to be painful.
Yeah.
Well,
Because he's
like,
locked up.
and, like at most nurses or like at rehab centers, they try to, we always, as therapists, like, please give them their medicine about 40 minutes before so it's taking effect, 45 minutes prior.
Because
if not, they're
it's
like,
another
"I
thing.
ain't moving."
If you're in too
Yeah.
much pain, you can't get the great therapy out of it. Because the pain can hinder what you do in therapy session.
And that's why I said earlier that you'll know if your therapist is right for you in the first couple sessions at least is whenever I have a patient that I'm doing passive range of motion on, I am having a full-blown conversation with them about random stuff.
Yeah.
And I like people, I like talking to people, but I'm doing that because it helps them relax.
And
And
it's distracting them.
you can see it visually on people's faces that when you stop talking and you're still moving the arm, they'll grimace and they'll walk up, right? But you start talking, they and then it's back.
Yeah.
So I mean, we talk a lot, and if I have a patient that is not very talkative, doesn't want to do it, like I have a guy right now. It's the same guy I was telling about. He comes in, he wears his headphones, and he watches YouTube videos while I do it.
And it still makes his mind distracted.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about breathing techniques. Breathing is so important. A lot of PTs, I don't think, focus on this enough. Like I have him before we start doing it, do this thing where you cover up one nostril, you take 10 deep breaths through one nostril, out through the mouth, purse lips, and then 10 deep breaths through the other nostril. And you do 20 breaths, right? One in each side, and it has to come out through the purse lips. And as soon as he does that, boom, we start. And that's a great relaxation technique. Next time you have about a minute to kill, 10 on each side.
Yeah.
And
10 on each side.
And you go
We'll do a
all the
video
way
on
to
it.
full expansion too, like
So like
as far
this.
as you can go.
Yeah, don't blow boogers.
Oh, like a.
So you
block
suck it in and out the mouth.
So I
Into
block
the
it like
nose, out
this
the
or
mouth.
go like this.
Well, you probably want to do it like this because if you do it like that, you move the septum over.
Oh,
So like this.
Ew.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible.
You don't got to jam your thumb in there.
Oh.
And then,
okay.
and then, and then,
Block it off.
and then purse lip breathe out.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool, man. All right. Well, anything else?
I'm good.
You good?
So if anyone had any questions to ask you specifically, where could they reach you?
Just
If you
contact
want.
us.
Contact
you guys.
Ask Keith. All right.
Okay.
I'm not a social media kind of guy.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you for doing
Thanks
this
for having me.
interview. It was
Yeah.
great information, and we're just trying to help people provide that education that they might not have,
And try to
and
figure out what-
help them
yeah.
through their rehab.
Try to people figure out what they need to have good treatment.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, brother.